Okay, looks like we have everyone back. So right on the dot, we're going to start our meeting. Our networking time is over, and glad you guys could join us. So I hope that was helpful for you to do some networking. It's always kind of neat to meet other people, especially now that we're getting people from across the nation. You know, we used to do these meetings live. We still want to get back to live, and we're just working on how do we mix the live with the Zoom. So I hope everybody.
Or make Peter do that. Make Peter. Peter knows how to do that. So just
all right. Well, we'll get him to do that for us. I hope you guys can see my screen. I'm going to go ahead and get started with our sponsors. Before that, I always like to say, you know, we dedicate this memory of Gene Garino, who was very instrumental in getting me started and a lot of other people. And he passed away last year. It was a big loss for our industry, but we certainly remember him and all that he did. Make sure that you visit our website, particularly if you are in Colorado, but if you're out of state, there may be some helpful information on here for you as well. In Colorado, it's important that you go to the key links here if you're just getting started, and make sure that you understand and completely know all of these guidelines and regulations here, because these are the rules that you must know here in Colorado. We've got our Facebook page, which is Denver ALR. We encourage you to join this. It's just, of course, a social networking platform, but it's a good way if you have questions to ask the group, try to get some answers. So hopefully you can use that. And for those of you that sign up through Meetup, we certainly appreciate that. When we get back to restaurants, it'll be important to understand how many people we have so that the restaurant's prepared. Our sponsors tonight are the Residential Assisted Living Academy. This is something that Gene had started. Rel National Association, the Better Way Realty, Anderson, Pinkowski Law, and Assisted Living Marketing. I'm going to go through each of these. The Rel National Association, we are fortunate tonight to have the president of this association, Mr. Brian Pinkowski. Brian, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, good evening. We're doing a lot of things with the National Association. We're a 30,000 member association. It's free to people who are interested and want to be part of the assisted living business. We provide a lot of services and advocacy on behalf of the assisted living community. In fact, even now we're working with the Colorado Assisted Living Association on some legislation that could affect the assisted living business here in Colorado, and we're doing the same thing in Arizona and in other places. So if you're not a member, you should be a member, and then you'll have access to a big wide world of resources. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Over 30,000 members. That is definitely an organization you want to be a part of, because that is very specific to what we're doing here. Okay, next we have the Rel Academy. If you are just getting started in this and need a resource to figure out what this is all about, we have a link to it directly on our website under the Rel, and these folks will teach you the basics of the assisted living space. We also have Anderson Legal, Business, and Tax Advisors. If you're getting started, or if you have a business that you need to set up, these guys are good at just entity structure, tax advising. That's really their forte. So certainly take a look at them if you're looking to structure and protect your assets. We have assisted living marketing. Normally Peter's on this call, so I let him speak a little bit about what he's doing. But he's not here. He's our website guy. He built our Denver ALR website. He's been one of the best web guys that I've worked with in the past 20 years. And he's done 2 sites for me and is finishing up a 3rd site. He does a great job. He's very, very responsive, which is very important. If you have a website you need to change or you need something done or it's not working, He's been the most responsive guy I've ever worked with, so I highly recommend him. Pinkowski Law, we have both Brian and Michelle Pinkowski here. Michelle's our presenter tonight, so I'll let them choose which one wants to give a little plug about their business.
That over you, Michelle.
Yeah, I'll go. So our law firm, we're based in Colorado, and we've just opened an office in Arizona. So we focus heavily on those states, doing all facets of the legal aspects of assisted living law for owners and operators of group homes and recovery housing. But we also help people around the country on finding the perfect location for your home, especially using the Fair Housing Act to understand zoning laws and HOAs. So, and another thing we do is we're involved in the Fgi standards, which is why Vern asked me to speak tonight. So thanks, Vern.
You're welcome. Thank you, Michelle. They are your secret weapon if you're looking to increase your census. Definitely you need to speak with them, and we're very fortunate to have them as part of our group. Next, we have Grand Avenue Business Brokers, which is my group at A Better Way Realty, and A Better Way Realty is where I hang my license. We also at A Better Way Realty do A Better Way Funding, of which we do lease options for group homes. And if you're curious about that, you could go to ralleaseoptions.com and see what that program looks like. We can help you if you are looking to expand or just get started. Some of our recent activity, we've got under contract 43 beds out in Grand Junction. We recently sold a 9-bedroom house in Centennial. There is a 12-bed that's available in North Metro Denver. We have a 3-pack of the business only, but the business has options on the real estate. So that's kind of an interesting deal. That particular seller would sell the 3 of them for $330,000. If you put $200,000 down, he will carry the balance on that. So there you go, an instant 3-pack. They're all 8-bed houses, and they're nice homes in the Centennial Highlands Ranch area. And we have a 10-bed that's upcoming in Northern Colorado. So if you need any help buying or selling, we can certainly help you. Give me a call. Here's my number, and it's also in the chat screen. And next, news from CALA, the Colorado Assisted Living Association. We have Janet Cornell here to give us a little update on what's going on there.
All right, great. Thank you. Colorado Assisted Living Association represents our industry here in Colorado. We tend to lean more towards the small group home model that's less than 19 beds. Currently, we're watching a lot of legislation that's happening here in Colorado. I think we have 5 bills that we're watching. So interesting time. So we'll see how that pans out, but we're trying to be supportive and do some training and work with new owners. So I always am excited that Vern suggests that new owners join CALA, because then you have some mentors in the business and you have some friends to talk shop with. So thank you, Vern.
Thank you, Janet. Always appreciate seeing you here. Okay, next, with no more further ado, I met Michelle and Brian, gosh, it's been 4 or 5 years now, at the very first national RAL nationals. Oh gosh, I'm trying to blank. Anyway, it's a national get together that they have down in Scottsdale every year, and we met at the first one and hit it off pretty well. And again, like I said, we've been very fortunate to have them as part of our group, and they've done wonderful things for the industry. And so no more further ado, Michelle, would you like to take over?
Sure. I'm going to share my screen. And sometimes when I do that, I lose my ability to see all of you. So especially since we're a smaller group tonight, I'm perfectly happy if you want to interrupt me and ask questions. If you're raising your hand to do that, I'm just telling you this is a preface. I might not see you, so just yell or send a note to Brian and he'll run down the hallway and tap me on the shoulder or something. I'm sure, knowing this group, you'll find a way to get my attention. So with that, let me share my screen here and we'll get going. And now my computers have just gone blank. So, okay, here we go. Oh, I've got it. And I can see you. I must have done something right tonight. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about what you need to know about the FGI design standards when buying, building, or remodeling an assisted living residence. And we talk about FGI a lot in Colorado because Colorado was a early adopter, I think the earliest adopter of these design standards for assisted living residences, which is what we call them in Colorado, which is any size of a home. But the FGI standards that our state adopted apply to everybody. And that's one reason we came together, I think, as such a great group here in Colorado. And thanks to Vern for bringing everybody together, because we early on, shortly after we met, we had a bit of a battle on our hands with respect to the regulations. And part of that had to do with these FGI design standards, which were not friendly for smaller homes or homes in single family residences. And so that's why we kind of dug into this topic. And then ultimately, because I especially raised a stink about it, FGI thought maybe they should perhaps get me on their drafting committee so that I could be productive and not just throwing stones at them. And so I was on the drafting committee for the next version. So tonight we're going to talk about the current version of these design standards, which is the 2018 version. The 2022 version, though, is the newest version that's coming out. It hasn't been adopted by anybody because it's just come out, but I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. For those of you who are not in Colorado and haven't heard about FGI, let me tell you a little bit about what it is. This is the agenda tonight. So I'll talk a little bit about what FGI is. When is FGI review required? What do you have to submit for an FGI review? I have some updates right from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment about the current status of FGI review, the FGI review situation here. We'll talk a little bit about some of the major issues that have come up in the design standards for small homes. And then actually there are some benefits from these standards, and I'll refer you to a great resource to learn more about that, because I'm not an architect, I'm a lawyer. But I've been dealing with the built environment for a really long time in my legal career, and then also with other consulting that I do. So I work with a lot of architects, but I'm not an architect. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about these standards, because these really are architectural standards. My standard disclaimer, nothing I'm saying tonight is legal advice. We can give you legal advice, but not in this setting. You'll have to talk to us separately for that. So what is FGI? FGI stands for Facility Guidelines Institute. This is a standards body, kind of like the International Code Council. Probably everybody on this call has heard about the International Building Code. That's done by the International Code Council. It's a standards body. These are these private bodies that they get a bunch of technical people together and develop these standards. And the FGI has actually been around for a long time, but they primarily started with these other standards. You see hospitals, and this one down here is a little bit harder to read. It's outpatient facilities. And because the people on the drafting committee are architects primarily, or owners of larger facilities, their viewpoint is that of larger facilities. So when they're drafting these standards, that's what they know. And that's what happened when they drafted the residential health care and support facilities guidelines, which is what governs us in Colorado. And if your state has adopted them for assisted living residences or personal care homes or whatever your state calls them, it would be this one, the residential guidelines. So that's what we're talking about. Again, this is a 2018 edition, and there's a new edition coming out. Okay, I mentioned FGI are just, they're guidelines, they're standards. They're to help architects design better buildings. That's the whole purpose, to help them design better buildings. And like any other standards, like the ones, the International Building Code or the Mechanical Code or the Fire Code or whatever, they are just guidelines until they're actually adopted by a local authority. So did you know that your local authority has actually got to adopt the building code? It's not automatically there. And that's the same thing with the FGI standards. So with Colorado, we have a regulation that is officially adopting the FGI design guidelines. Until then, they're handy things to use. So if you are doing a ground up build in a state that doesn't require it, it still might be a handy thing to consult because there's some good design information in there. And now that I know the people on the committee, they are architects with a lot of experience in healthcare settings with geriatric patients. They're people who really want to use evidence-based research to inform design. But they just have to understand that there are different contexts that it needs to be applied in. The FGI on their website, and I'll share this presentation, so you'll see some hyperlinks here. I've linked to this map. You can go and see if your state has adopted the guidelines. When I did a quick overview, I could see the states that say that they've adopted them, but I'll tell you some caveats about that in a second. That includes Arizona for assisted living centers, that's 11 and above. Colorado for everybody, except some carve-outs. Delaware, Florida for bigger ones, 16. Minnesota for everybody. There was nobody like us, unfortunately, in Minnesota at the time to encourage them to do carve-outs or to make some exceptions for the smaller homes. So Minnesota has it for everybody. And then Nebraska, New Hampshire, and Tennessee, I am not sure the extent to which. I know that the states have adopted FGI, but I'm not sure the extent to which. So when I'm talking about carve-outs, because a local authority can adopt the standard, they can also adopt exceptions to the standard. So what we as a group did here in Colorado was to say, okay, well, if you're going to adopt these standards, you need to make some modifications for the small homes. So our regulation sets that out. So for you guys in Tennessee, I know that Tennessee has adopted the standards. I have heard from my buddy Tim Wilson, who's just been through this there, that they have some carve-outs for smaller homes. So you will want to make sure that your architect knows about FGI and that you know what the carve-outs are. Same with any of these other states. And we try to keep our finger on the pulse of this so that we can get involved and help states design carve-outs that are appropriate. But we rely on people in the states to let us know if they're being proposed. So if you are in a state that's not listed here, make sure you stay connected with your regulator, because states are coming online all of the time, like Oklahoma. I have spoken to the regulator, and they know that they'll be hearing from us if they don't do carve-outs. So we're trying to work collaboratively with them to make it so that it is something that's workable for small homes. So just stay connected with your regulator and make sure that you keep this on your view screen. So the question is, if say you're in Colorado, and I'm going to focus on Colorado because that's where we are. But if you're in another state, you're going to want to find this out for yourself, looking at your own regulations. But in Colorado, an FGI review is required under certain circumstances. If it applies, you have to go through the FGI review before you can get your license. So if you're adding an addition, which means that these things are defined, these terms are defined. So if you're making changes to your facility or a facility you want to buy, you're going to want to see and look at what is the magnitude of the change that you're making, and does it fall within what's defined as an addition, which is adding extra space and extra rooms. Renovation, usually it's major changes. It's not minor changes. We're not talking paint and remodeling the kitchen. It's more than that. A new build, either ground up or adding on. Again, adding on would be an addition. So addition, renovation, new construction, you have to go through FGI review unless it's considered minor. You also need to go through FGI review if you're getting an initial license. So you're buying a new building, or you're buying a home, you're going to renovate it and turn it into a 8, 10, 12 bed assisted living residence. You're going to have to go through this FGI review. So a question we get all the time is, what if I'm buying an existing ALR and I'm just doing a change of ownership? Well, good news for you, if it's just a change of ownership, you don't have to go through FGI review. But sometimes when people are buying an RAL or ALR, you don't want to buy the existing entity. Like maybe something has happened with the existing entity and you don't want that baggage. You want to start fresh. So you're getting an existing facility, but you say, I don't want their license. I want a new license. Well, under those circumstances, unfortunately, and I'm going to be working on this to hopefully get this changed, but currently, as the regulation stands today, you will have to go through an FGI review. So again, if you're doing a change of ownership, no FGI. If it's a new license, yes, FGI.
Michelle,
Yeah,
do you know how long they're taking now to review?
I do.
I know it was 4 months just to look at the paperwork a few months ago. Where are they at now?
It's longer than that. It's well, they're saying 4 to 5 months, but according to the queue that you can see online, it's in excess of 5 months, a project that they're working on right now.
She just say that if you get a new license, you have
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I've got a slide on that actually.
Michelle,
Uh,
Michelle, it actually sounds like there's some chit chat in the background raising a question on this point. So whoever that was, if you could actually speak up, that would be great. Michelle will answer your question.
I think I heard if you're getting a new license, do you have to do FGI review? And the answer is yes.
So Michelle, this is Fran.
Hey there.
Hi. So if like we just did a change of ownership lately, and we don't have the state hasn't come in yet. So this almost kind of like a little back, like I don't think it meets the new rules and regulations. So what do you think we should do on those?
Well, if it's just a change of ownership, you're not making any changes to the building, then
Okay.
you don't need to have an FGI review.
Okay, so unless we want to, do a little bit of extension or something like that, then.
Yeah, if you're going to extend it, if you're going to convert space to make new bedrooms or bathrooms, or if you're going to build out the basements, anything like that, you're going to have to go through FGI review.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. So when you submit for your FGI review, you're going to have to submit design documents. You do this at the time that you are applying for the building permit from the local authorities. Unless no permit is required, which I'm not, under the circumstances that I've described about when you have to do FGI review, probably a permit is always going to be required. But if no permit is required, the regs say just submit it before you begin construction. So submit it as soon as you can, definitely when you apply for the building permit. When you submit, you're going to submit your design documents. You're also going to submit a functional program. This is kind of new. If this is a bigger facility, if this is a big box and you have architects that are used to designing big boxes, the functional program is something that architects know how to do. But the architects that work on the smaller homes, they don't necessarily, and the owners don't necessarily, the functional program isn't familiar to them. So you're going to have to get familiar in the FGI guidelines, which come in paper or digital. It goes over what a functional program is. I also have a template that I prepare for clients. But you need to do a functional program. It's basically telling the department how you're going to run your building and what about your operation affects design. And you'd be surprised, a lot of things about your operation affect design. But it's important not just to blow this off, because you need to, if you do a good, thorough functional program, one, it'll help you design a better space. But also it could save you time in the long run, because if they're looking through your design documents and the regulator can't, so they've got this big backlog. They get to your project, they start looking through your design documents. If they can't find the answers they're looking for, then they'll go to your functional program. And if they can't find the answers there, Then they're going to start doing a spreadsheet, and then they get in touch with you and say, look, we need these corrections, we need this additional information, and then you have to go back and forth. And guess what that means? That means more time. So you don't want that. You want to try to be as thorough as you can up front. Now, up
Michelle,
until, yeah, go ahead, Fran.
I have a functional program that may affect the design. Can you give us a one example or two examples of that?
A couple of things. How are you going to handle, for example, how are you going to handle your soiled linens? The FGI requires that you have a clean utility room and a soiled utility room. And I'd like to hear some, maybe at the end, we hear if any, how people are doing this with small homes. But how are you going to handle your soiled linens to make sure they don't mix up with your clean linens, for example? Or where is staff going to have a place to write out the records? Do they have a place to sit? Do you have a place to lock up your med cart? How many staff are you going to have? What's the flow of the building going to be? I could look in here, actually. I won't do it right now, but we can talk later too, Fran, about basically what spaces are going to be required for the functions that are going to be happening in your building.
I mean, I understand that, but there are some that are new here, and I'm assuming that they're lost. What could those things be? So just
yeah, like
That's
circulation
okay.
patterns. You know, how one thing, a great example that Gene Garino actually always taught in his academy, which thanks for giving the shout out to Gene, Vern, that made me a little teary. You know, it's still a little fresh for me. But Gene is very close to our hearts. But one thing he always taught in his academy is don't put a laundry room right next to a bedroom. Don't have an adjoining wall with the laundry room and the bedroom, because your night staff is going to be doing laundry and it's going to keep people awake. But for purposes of FGI, they're going to be looking at things like the clean linen and the dirty linen, and how are you handling that? How are you handling the infection control and things like that? So another document that was required under FGI is the resident safety risk assessment. That's really where the infection control and whatnot comes in. This is a good document to have. The department in Colorado can ask for it at any time, but this is news here recently in Colorado. It's not required for us anymore. A lot of people were struggling with this, and so the department has said, fine, you don't have to submit it. Just like the equipment list, it's no longer required. So hopefully that'll streamline things a little bit. Here's a direct answer to your question, Vern. The time for review according to the department is 4 to 5 months. You can go, if you have a project in the queue, here's a hyperlink, you can go and you can actually put in the name of your project, and it will tell you where you are in the queue. So on that page today, when I looked it up, they say they're currently reviewing a project that was submitted on October 19th last year. So what does that mean? That means when you are planning to do renovations, constructions, or get a new license, that anything that triggers FGI, you need to plan all of this into your budget, your timing. Just make sure you have enough time. I touched on this a little bit. What can you do to speed up the review? Make sure your submittal is complete. If you can find an architect that really knows about FGI, that's really helpful. Because you want your plans to be as compliant as possible, and do a thorough functional program. So I talked about all that already. So the department at CDPHE that reviews the plans, they have, because of this situation with the extreme backlog, they've done a streamlining process and looked at everything, and they are really working to try to reduce the backlog. Part of this backlog is coming because they're not just reviewing plans for small homes. They've got, for example, 3 large hospitals. Hospitals have to go through the FGI review. behavioral health centers have to go through a FGI review. All of the other medical facilities go through FGI review. So the small homes get put in that same queue. But what they have started to do is to designate every Friday, one of the plan reviewers, there are 2.5 plan reviewers, basically. One will designate Fridays just to work on small homes. So they understand that we shouldn't be stuck behind these massive projects, and they're trying to push it through. So we'll monitor it, and hopefully the timing will speed up. The other thing they're trying to do is to get people to do better submittals and finally do some outreach to the architectural community, which is, I don't mind saying this because I've told them, that I told them so. They need to do outreach to the architectural committee, the architectural industry, because architects don't know about FGI. I've talked to architects and they say, oh yeah, we specialize in, working on group homes. I'm like, great, so you know about FGI? And they're like, F what, And I'm like, oh no, because how would they know? The department hasn't done outreach to them. So the department is trying to do more outreach now, and also to owners and operators. So what they have started to do is a quarterly outreach meeting. So every 3 months on the first Wednesday of the month, here is the meeting link that they can answer questions. So anybody who, like Vern, this is something you might want to have somebody, attend, just so anybody who is really active in buying, selling, establishing these homes, this is something you probably want to attend so that you know what is the latest news on the FGI situation in Colorado. And they're trying to answer people's questions in a group form rather than one-on-one, which takes their time away from reviewing the plans. All right, well, here's some common issues that have come up in Colorado. And for those of you who are not in Colorado, I hope this is helpful for you. For those of you who are in Colorado, you probably already know about these, but I'll share them for everybody. FGI, the 2018 guidelines say that all people should be able to access a bathroom without entering a corridor. We have had FGI now issue an opinion saying that small homes don't really have corridors. They're really talking about public corridors. But we've also got Colorado to revise the regulations to say assisted living residents that are located in single family residential neighborhoods and operating in structures designed as single family homes don't have to comply with this requirement. If you are doing a ground up build, though, that's just not in this, that doesn't fall within this carve out, you are going to have to comply with this provision. Elevators, again, we have a carve out for our assisted living residences in single family homes, but otherwise FGI says that elevators have to be big enough to accommodate a gurney. FGI also says you have to have one parking space for every unit. We fought that, and so that's a carve out in Colorado. You just have to do parking per local requirements. But if you know anybody in Minnesota, again, they don't have these carve outs, and so you need to check your state to see if your state has created any exceptions for you. In the utility room, again, I mentioned clean utility room, soiled utility room. And the thing that has, I've heard this on multiple occasions. This is one thing that I missed in reviewing the 2018 guidelines, but there's a lot in this book, and I think we're all learning. In your utility room, you need to have what's called a rim flushing sink. Does anybody know what that is? I know Vern knows what that is. It's basically like a sink that operates like a toilet bowl. And it's kind of unusual. And if you design your utility room and you don't have the electrical and plumbing for this particular sink, it's going to be a problem to go back and redo it at the end. So this is definitely something you want to take a look at.
Michelle, I got a quick question on that last slide.
Yeah.
Can you define bathroom? Does that have to have a shower in it, or can it just be like a half bath?
It does have to have a shower in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even if the showers, even if they have like separate shower rooms.
Yep.
So if you're building let's say you're building a nice 16 bed with a bathroom for every room, that bathroom needs to have at least a shower in it,
Yes,
or access without entering a corridor.
correct.
So,
I'm waiting for architects to come up with some interesting, like 4-bedroom pod design with a bathroom in the center of the 4. I haven't seen it yet, but I can conceptualize it in my own mind. So hopefully somebody can come up with that.
Are you familiar with the Applewood Cares homes, the 16 beds that Alan has?
Yeah,
You know, he's got a shower in, I think, 2 corners. So he's got the 4 bedrooms and then the shower bathroom. But maybe you could use that model and put it in all 4 corners.
yeah.
Where is that again, Brent?
Applewood, our house, I
Oh,
think is his company's name. And
Yeah, that's correct.
he does very, very nice 16 bed ground ups. Each one of them has a half bath in it. So that's a concept we've been working on with the modular as well, trying to figure out how to build something like that.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that's helpful to know.
important. Yeah,
Thank you.
you bet.
So Michelle, another question for the parking. 1 space for every unit. You know, we had later, you know, our last argument with that state and city with that, you know, that new owner.
Mhm.
Looks like this does not, you know, that argument by looking at this, that argument that, you know, they made over that unit has got enough space, car parking space, I guess.
Yeah, and keep in mind, so that doesn't apply here in Colorado because we got them to say that the parking is per the local requirements, which is because the question is, what is a unit? And if a unit is a bedroom, you know, in a big box facility, people have apartments. So basically this is saying 1 parking space for every resident apartment. Of course, in the ALRs, we don't have apartments, we have rooms. And so it would be ridiculous to have, you know, 10 parking spaces required for a 10-bed ALR.
Yeah.
Although, by the way, in Tennessee, there was 1 local jurisdiction that was requiring a ton of parking. It wasn't from FGI, but we had a fair housing argument that we made to do away with that because it just doesn't make sense in residential homes to have this kind of parking requirement. So there are ways to get around these things. Let me skip this one and go to, oops. No. I think I accidentally deleted a slide. Okay, I'll just stay on this one and talk about what happens if you have a great home, but you can't meet some of these requirements. In Colorado, we have a waiver program. You have to apply for the waiver for anything related to FGI before you're issued a license or before you file the license. The application for the license, sorry. It's getting late. Before you file the application for the license, you have to get the FGI waiver. There is a waiver requirement in Chapter 2 for other things, but this is specific to FGI. I have represented clients who have gotten a waiver, represented somebody who got a waiver to the rim flushing sink requirement because he had built his facility and they had everything plumbed, all the electric in, all the finishes in, and then there was no rim flushing sink and he didn't pass the inspection. So we were able to figure out another solution for that. That's one exception. But anything can be an exception because, as I said, this is a book. This is a big book, and I'm not an architect. But you know, there are some things about acoustics. There's some things about lighting, and they're above my technical knowledge grade. So an architect would need to look at that. But it might be that some of these technical requirements your architect looks at and says, we can't meet that. If that's the case, we should submit a waiver when you submit the FGI package, or at least in the back and forth. If there's, you submit the package and they say this doesn't comply, and you come back and say, okay, well, then I want a waiver. That would be the best time to do it. Don't wait. Unfortunately, like many states, Colorado, they only issue licenses on a yearly basis. That's the extent of their statutory authority. So the waivers are only good for a year. And then you have to renew them. Every time you renew the license, you renew the waiver. I don't know how it is for other states, but there should be some kind of a waiver requirement as well. And you know that I can't get through any kind of webinar without talking about the Fair Housing Act, because I think potentially there could be fair housing arguments to an FGI issue. So just keep that in mind. If there is something in the FGI design requirements that is making it so that you cannot locate in a home, in a residential neighborhood because of some requirement that just seems to you to be, unfair and not right, that's something we can look at and see, is there a fair housing argument? Because the federal law of fair housing would take precedence over this kind of requirement.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Go back to the utility room, the soil utility room and rain flushing sink. So I have older homes and I have new home as well. So one of my new home has got only like right next to the bathroom. I mean, the laundry room, I have a sink there. So that sink, we would clean up all the, rinse out all the soil clothes and that kind of stuff and then put it back in the washer. But the room flushing sink, is that something that, is similar to that, or what is the purpose of that?
It's for hygiene. As I understand it, the rim flushing feature, so you've got water that comes out of the rim and then comes down, and it's supposed to keep the sink cleaner than if it's just got a drain at the bottom and the water flushing things down the drain. So it flushes more of the surface of the sink. If you're washing soiled linens there or something, then it's supposed to be more hygienic.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Vern, have you had any experience with how people are doing the clean utility room and the soiled utility room, or has anybody else? I'm curious to hear about that.
I've not. I was actually curious about what's the difference? How do you deal with that? That's the first time I've seen that one. So I do not
Michelle,
know.
at Milberg Homes, we got cited for that. And we were able to handle it by labeling clean laundry in one basket and dirty laundry in the other basket, and train our staff on how to do that. So we were able to kind of overcome that. And it took a while to, kind of get the residents in gear. And none of the dirty laundry could come into the laundry room with the clean laundry. So we were real good about segregating both.
So you didn't have to change the configuration of the laundry room. You just had to change the operating procedures.
We had to keep the dirty laundry in separate baskets. What they're afraid of is, and I know it happened, and people probably do it in their own house. They throw all the dirty laundry in the laundry basket. They take it to the laundry room and they wash it, and then they fold it and put it back in the same laundry basket. Well, in assisted living, we have urine in those laundry baskets because you took dirty linen off and, soiled clothing, and you put it into a laundry basket and you laundered it, and then you put the clean laundry back in. So that's where that came from. So as long as you can clearly show that you're keeping them separate, we were able to get over that tag on the survey that we had.
That's great. Thanks, Janet.
Thank you.
That's great
Thank
advice.
you, Janet. Yeah.
Sure.
Has anybody else in Colorado had an FGI issue that you want to share?
When I did mine from the ground up, I mean, not the ground up, I converted the residential home to 8-bed, and I converted the garage. They asked me to put one sink by the laundry, and one was at the utility room with the rest of the staff. So I rarely use it because I just go ahead and put the swell in the, the sink close to the laundry room, but I rarely use the bottom one. And that's why that rim flushing sink is kind of like, it's kind of new to me. So I don't know if anybody else is using that in Colorado.
Yeah, it has been required, but when I talked to my friend, whom I'm about to tell you about, who is the head of the drafting committee, and I was teasing her about that. I'm like, what was it with this rim flushing sink? And she's like, oh gosh, did we leave that in there? It was kind of a remnant of something. And that's what will happen because there's a lot of requirements, and unless you're digging through there, sometimes you don't find them. But every time there is a new drafting cycle for these kind of standards, whether the standard or the building code or anything else, people can make comments. So as we discover some of these little things that might be a little inconvenient, we can make comments in the next drafting cycle. So let me tell you, my friend from the, I want to tell you about Jane, not about me. Jane Rody was the head of the drafting committee for FGI, and she was great to work with. And she let me talk a lot about how the standards weren't appropriate for small homes. And she worked hand in hand to change things for the next version. So now we just need to get the state to adopt the new version that's coming out. I think that will be helpful. But in doing that, she kind of fell in love with the smaller home. She's designed all kinds of assisted living all around the world. And now she is being hired by people like the ones on this call who are developing smaller homes. And she is great. She is super informed about all of the evidence-based and how to design spaces to make it so that your residents can be more independent and more functional for longer. And so I'll tell you some of the things that she taught me because she's the architect and I'm not, but I wanted to give you this slide to refer you to a great webinar that she did for the Residential Assisted Living National Association, because in that webinar, she had a lot of photos about things like colors in assisted living and lighting. So I would really recommend that you go to the Facebook page for Ralna, find her webinar and register it, and you can get the recording because she, especially colors, I thought was really interesting. And this is one way we can see how the design standards can really help us in our business. Because in Colorado, we really are like, we kind of were adversarial with them from the beginning, and especially me. And, I was opposed to them because they were so burdensome for small homes. But if we also dig deep and find how can they benefit? How can you use these design standards to set you apart from other homes? And some of the pictures that Jane has and what she talks about with respect to color theory, for example. So with your residents, as their vision changes, you're going to want to have a certain level of contrast between, for example, the carpet or the flooring and the furniture. So she told me this story about a dentist's office, and architects love these monochrome colors. They like things to be very simple. So they had this dentist's office with very beautiful gray carpet, and they also had gray furniture. And this particular office served a lot of older patients. They finally had to spend, I think, tens of thousands of dollars to change the furniture because people couldn't see. They couldn't distinguish between the gray chairs and the gray floors, and they kept falling. So they had a large number of falls in this medical office, and they had to get rid of the furniture. And had someone known this color theory, they could have picked an appropriate contrasting color. And she talks about color contrast, and there's scientific basis for how much contrast, even in the bathroom. How do you create contrast to help people with incontinence, to help them find where the commode is? It's really interesting. And there's actually science behind the fact that it shows that it does help. It helps with that. It helps prevent falls. It just helps people see better. Another thing she talks about is lighting. and how the level of lighting can be more synced with our circadian rhythms, especially to help people with Alzheimer's. So, we've heard about probably lighting that is, it's lighter during the daytime, and then it comes down to a different tone at night. And some homes will have that, say, in the common areas, but they won't remember to do that kind of lighting in the hallway. So residents will kind of wind down. They'll come to a nice spot in the common areas. They'll get ready for bed and be ready for sleepy. And then they walk into the hallways, which are brightly lit, and boom, they're awake again by the time they get back to their rooms. So some of these things are, she says, not expensive, and really, really a nice way to create an environment that promotes health and independence for the residents, and also makes it easier for the staff. So that's what I know about the design issues. Is I learned all of that from my friend Jane, and I would refer you to her as well. So that's all I have. Happy to answer any other questions or talk about any experiences you've had with this situation or these design guidelines or anything else.
Michelle,
Sure.
could you please post the link from your last slide, that Facebook link?
Yeah. Let me see. Oops. Didn't mean to open it.
I was trying to find it, but I couldn't get it to share it in the chat. Sorry.
I'm having a little hard time maneuvering to do that. Let me stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
And maybe I can do that easier. Uh-oh. Did anybody else have any other questions?
That was really good stuff, Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle, as always, you've done an exceptional job. So thank you.
My
Yes, we
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's
So
good
I have a
information.
question. Do you think the state health departments are getting a little more lenient on FGIs or a workaround for them? Seeing that, sometimes there's a shortage of living options, especially in rural places.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually had a slide, and I don't know what happened to it. But one thing, when I was talking to Marshall at the CDPHE, who was on the drafting committee of FGI with me, so I have a nice relationship with him, and I was getting the news from him, and he wanted me to point out that the state regulators don't have the ability to change the FGI guidelines. So the guys who are the people, there are women also, people who are reviewing the plans don't have the discretion to make any waivers. But where there is some wiggle room is in those definitions of what is renovation, what is an expansion, what is new construction, what is an addition, what is a renovation. So there are definitions of those two things in both in Chapter 2 and in the FGI guidelines themselves. So there is some wiggle room, and both to argue that it's not a major alteration, that's one argument, or that there's something structural or something about the building itself that just makes it impossible. And they might have some wiggle room there, but otherwise they have to apply it as written unless a waiver is granted. And the people who are granting the waiver are different than the people who are reviewing the plans.
Okay. The reason I asked that is in the Collaboration and Aging conference that we did, we met a number of rural House representatives that think it's atrocious that you have to drive 2 hours to get to an assisted living. And they were kind of enamored with the whole concept of a group home. And they're trying to figure out how to build them from the ground up. And so they're going to run into FGI. There's one in La Vita that took over a cheese factory. And they have a 16-bed facility. They have not been able to open yet, though. And they have an awesome concept, and they're trying to keep their town from having to drive 2.5 hours if you have to put your mom in assisted living, which is a very viable quality of life issue for those seniors. So that might be an option to work with some of our rural Colorado and rural everywhere on assisted living for, 7 to 10 to 14 beds in a small town that needs to have FGI exceptions because of quality of life for their family member. You can't drive 2 hours to see somebody on a regular basis,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So I thought I'll give you his contact information if you want it, but they're working on, it sounds like he's working with a lot of rural territories in Colorado.
That's great.
So,
Yeah.
so is that causing the assisted living, not the FGI review, causing the assisted living not to open in a timely manner? Because the review is taking 4 to 5 months?
You mean the one in Levita?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. They're at least 4 months later than they thought they could open. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Well, that happens, Maggie, because you know what, then you're trying to hire staff and you have an expected start date because, it's really hard to start a facility and then have residents move in and hire staff. I mean, what do you do first? Do you pay your staff or do you get residents? I mean, how are you going to make that work without, really having a lot of expenditures out there, especially with staffing, because staffing doesn't want to just come to work and take care of nobody. They're going to get bored and they're going to quit. So you have to have some residents. And so it's a real struggle I see on the operational side of things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Michelle, could I ask a quick question? And maybe you already addressed this. Can you hear me okay?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Okay. We had heard from one of our architects that you could not have a bedroom off of a common space area, like a living room or a dining room. And that might be challenging for some smaller assisted living homes. Did you address that already? And I apologize if you did, but if you did not, will you?
I did not address that, and I have seen that come up too. It's a privacy issue. So there's like a line of sight. You don't want to have somebody, being in their bed or being in a state of undress or whatever, and the door opens and, it's right next to the dining room or something. So that has come up. I can't cite exactly the FGI paragraph that's under, but I believe that there is something about line of sight and privacy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have something, Kim?
I did. I'm still trying to in Texas, we don't have to follow FGI, but I'm still trying to understand the bathroom cannot be connected to a corridor. So you can't have a bathroom off of a hallway?
No, you can't. Residents have to be able to access a bathroom without going into a corridor.
Okay, so if they have, because we're building a 16-bed private bathroom with shower, so each room will have their own full bathroom.
You're golden. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got it.
Even though the public bathroom is in a hallway.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. But the resident, so you're thinking, if somebody's going to take a shower, maybe they're in their robe or something, and they're walking through a public corridor, that the FGI committee thinks that that's not particularly comfortable for the resident.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, guys, oddly enough, I have another call after this with somebody around the world at a different time zone. So I'm going to log off, but thank you very much for having me. It's been great to see everybody.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
I tried that link, that Facebook link, and it didn't work. So I reached out to Jane and asked her for the webinar. So as soon as I can get that, I will send it out to you guys.
It worked for me, Renee.
What's that? It worked for you?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've tried it 3 different times and it says, sorry, this content isn't available now.
I saw where Ralna just started up their YouTube page, and that webinar is out on YouTube now, actually, also.
It's,
Oh,
I
awesome.
consider right here as well, because it takes to Facebook, and then this is the link to actually did you guys see it?
Yes, let me try
Okay.
that.
That's the one. Ignore that see less, it's because I copy and paste. So
Is that working for you guys? It's not working for me either.
I didn't get the one that Nanda put up, but the one that Michelle put up, I got through.
How bizarre.
So
you
my
might have some cookies. You might have some cookies on your browser that is taking you to a different place.
Thank you.
Yeah, my workaround was I went to the Ralna Facebook page and then I did a search on that page for design of residential assisted living, creating successful community. And then you have to enter in your email address and then it gives you the webinar.
And
Hoorah.
also, I think you might have to be Ralna Facebook member to see that.
Probably do.
Oh, I'm not. That's probably why. Thank you.
But they'll let anybody in, I think. Vern could
Even the
probably-
riffraff?
Yes.
Okay, I'm safe.
There are no Ralna members who are riffraff, so everyone is welcome.
All right, well, that was awesome. Next, we have our haves and wants. This is an opportunity for you to present anything to the group. If you have a service that you may want to present to the group, you can certainly do that. If you're looking for partners, you have something for sale, whatever it is. If you're looking for partners, this is an opportunity. So if anybody has a service, Janet, that they may want to share with the group, Janet.
Okay, I will certainly do that. My name's Janet Cornell. I now am doing my own consulting business. At one time, I ran 8 group homes in Colorado. So it was an exciting time, both AL and secure dementia care. So I've been there, done that, made every mistake you can make in the book. So I'll be happy to help you talk through your strategies. At one point in time, I actually felt like I was in a gerbil wheel and I couldn't get out of it because I was really, really trying hard to make sure everybody had bread on Sunday afternoon because I was getting calls from staff, we're out of bread. And then I was able to reorganize where I actually had weekends off. So that's my hope, is we need everybody that has a passion to be in assisted living to be doing their job so that they don't burn out and jump out of the industry, because this is a 24/7 business, guys. So you have to be able to set yourself up to succeed for the long haul. I actually worked in those 8 group homes for almost 20 years. I was short about 6 months of being there 20 years. So it was my passion. I've loved it, solved a lot of problems, been there, done it all. So I'll be happy, guys, if you need some assistance in how to structure your organization so you're not working all the time.
Janet's contact information is in the chat screen.
Yeah.
So when you go to the chat screen, where you put your information in, you're going to see to the top right of that little area 3 dots. And if you click on those dots, you can save the chat. It'll save it as a text file. So that's how you can reach out to anybody that you met tonight. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this evening. Is there any more haves or wants that we may want to share?
Yeah, I'd mentioned Kelly and I are in the process, like I said, mentioned to a couple of you, next month we'll be closing on our property, but we are still looking for a couple partners to finish out our complete finance package. We're looking to raise anywhere between 400 and 600,000. I've been working with the Rel Academy team, finalize our pro forma and all our financial splits and things. Mark Hutton's been a really big help providing that service to us. So we about have that wrapped up, and hopefully by the beginning of next week, we'd have a package to present. But we're developing a 12-bed home. It's a purchase and renovation. So yeah, and my contact is in the chat box there. So.
Terrific, Curtis. Congratulations too.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Where in Tennessee?
We're in Cookeville, Tennessee. It's right in the middle of the state. It's about halfway between Nashville and Knoxville.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, if not, then I usually exit. We leave the doors open so that you guys can mingle amongst yourself, and we will leave it open until everybody is gone. So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. It's good to see familiar faces and new faces. And we do this the last Wednesday of every month. Hopefully we bring some value to you guys, and we will see you next month.
Thanks, Vern.
Thank
Thanks
you
so
very
much.
All right. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Mommy,
Yes,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I am completely swamped tomorrow, but I'm going to reach out to you if we can make it later next week. Is that okay for you?
Later next week, it's my mom's 80th and I'm taking her to Hawaii.
Oh my goodness. Oh, are you going to go say hi? Let's see. Helen is out there. Where in Hawaii are you going to be?
We're gonna go to the Big Island and then we're gonna go to Oahu. So we'll be on 2 different islands.
Do you know Helen?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, let's see. Her information.
Did she put her information in the chat?
Let me make sure. Craig,
I think
Linda.
people dropped off. I think a lot of people dropped off, but yeah,
Here it is.
I joined the call a little bit late, so I missed some of the presentation, but hopefully I can get to the webinar again.
Here, I'm going to message you hers so you don't have to dig for it.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, definitely. I'll reach out to her.
Yeah, reach out because she's in Hawaii now. So maybe you can make a great connection. You just never know. She's really nice. She's a really nice lady. I've worked with her a little bit and I think you'll like her.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let me just write it down just to make sure, because for some reason I'm not able to save the chat anymore. Wait, no, I can. Hold on, I got it.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
And if something happens, just reach out to me. I'll get it for you.
Yeah, but yeah, no, definitely if you want to connect. I mean, we're just going to be chilling. It's my mom's birthday on the 9th and my auntie Charlene's birthday on the 8th. So we're basically like celebrating it together. So we'll be on the Big Island for a few days. And then on Sunday, my mom's on Facebook right now.
Oh, that's so cool.